I'll be your friend today.
Yeah, well, what kind of cord is it?
iPhone.
Maybe, no, I have a USB-C.
And I have a
that.
USB, like the new micro one
Yeah.
in my car, but of course it doesn't.
No, I do not, unfortunately.
On YouTube? Yep. Okay.
I have,
All right. So Kaya, we are streaming,
okay,
so we can
all right.
begin whenever you'd like. No rush.
So we are live, we are streaming, we are recording? Yep. All right, excellent. I call to order this May 12th meeting of the Moab City Planning Commission at 6:03 p.m. In attendance, we have Planning Commissioners Britton Ballard, Jeremy Lynch, myself, Kai Marienfeld, Ruben Villapando-Salas, Jessica O'Leary, Jill Tatton, and city staff, Jessica Thacker and Corey Shirtliff, as well as our city council liaison, Luke Wojciechowski, and members of the public. Let's see, citizens to be heard is the first item on the agenda. So for clarification, if you are here for citizens to be heard, that is if you would like to speak about something that is not an action or a discussion item on the agenda. If you are here for one of those items, we can have you come up and say something if you have something to say at the time of that agenda item. So if you are here for the Western Spirit site plan, then this is not your time. There will be time later, but if you're here for any other reason and you want to make a public comment, feel free to come up to the microphone if you would like to. Yeah, just come up to the microphones up here. Make sure you're talking into it. Say your name, please, just for the recording. And you have 2 minutes, but we won't be crazy about it. Yeah, can you pull that towards you? Thanks.
I'm Sue Shepard, Kim Shepard's sister. You might know her. She's a longtime local resident. We own the home at 351 East 300 South, which borders this new apartment complex that you all have approved, I guess conditionally at this point. I just did want to kind of state a few of our issues with that project. I don't know how much good it will be at this point, but we were not informed. I'm kind of surprised at a project this big. The neighbors weren't really let in on that this was going on. When we got here in April, or actually one of the neighbors did email us, I guess after reading the paper or something. I live in Colorado most of the time, and I'm only here for like 4 months a year, so I kind of missed it. But after studying all the documents that were online, we've come up with a couple of different things that we just want to make you all aware of. Basically, we feel it's too big of a project, number one. I know everyone's in love with the idea of affordable housing. We have that same problem in Crested Butte and Colorado too. The thing with this project is that I think we're setting somewhat of a precedent with it being 3 stories, 2 of the buildings, Building B and Building C being 3 stories. Seems like that's going to be pretty massive. We are kind of concerned about the noise, which has been an issue over on 300 South because it seems to be the main drag up to the Slick Rock, and so all the ATVs and everybody are racing by all the time anyway. So we're a little bit concerned that this is going to be pretty noisy with 80 units. I understand that parking is pretty much up against our property. I'm just wondering, though, if this property has actually been surveyed. It looks like it's pretty much from the site map, just like they just took it off of, county plats or city plats or whatever. The reason I'm concerned is that we have a wall that borders this property, and we are in the process of getting our property surveyed just to see where this wall is, but I have a feeling that it's on their property, and it's been there for over 20 years. So we're a little bit concerned that if he's considering taking it down, we have a problem. And the other thing is that basically his plan was approved with this additional square footage that is where the wall is. And I'm not really sure, but all those fences along that way I think are encroaching, maybe 7 feet. So that's something to think about. We're definitely concerned about that. I think another bummer about this project is that there are 3 healthy old cottonwoods on this property that are the only 3 cottonwoods in the whole community in that area that haven't been attacked by bagworms. You know, they're actually beautiful trees, and according to the paperwork that was listed, he's going to scrape the whole property. So that's kind of sad. We also have a problem with the dumpster location, which is right on the corner of our property. As it is right now, you know, it's double zoned in there with commercial and residential. So I don't know if he's commercial, the dumpster's right between the two lots, if that means that's going to get picked up every day. I'm not really familiar with dumpster rules around here. I just know that every morning at 6 o'clock, all the dumpsters in the area are emptied, and they're a block away or half a block away, and this is right at the edge of our property. So have a problem with the dumpster location. We're also wondering if there's any documentation, if you all have to do that here, where he will keep the units. My understanding from the article in the paper is that they're all going to be long-term rental units. So does the commission have any control over that, keeping them long-term rentals, or basically is he going to be selling them and they're going to be short-term rentals? And I guess right now that it's kind of up in the air as far as the active employment households that are going to be included in that project. So I just kind of wonder how that's going to be controlled. You know, how will that be enforced? I imagine you've been thinking about that also. I didn't see the utility easement on the site map. That kind of goes right along our wall as it is right now. I'm thinking that he's going to be burying the utilities at some point. But I guess, you know, basically our main concern is just the size of the project. You know, those 3-story buildings, there's no 3-story buildings in that area for blocks. That just seems like that's going to be pretty huge and, you know, looking right into our properties. And I know my neighbors are concerned also, although none of them are coming before you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And it was Cherry? Sorry.
Sue.
Sue. I knew it
And
was
Sue,
messed
we
up.
did get your written citizens to be heard comment as well, and that was shared with the commission earlier today.
Yep,
So
we just
wanna let
got
you
that
know, we got both, so that was perfect. Thank you for coming.
Sure.
Apologies for messing up your name.
Oh, no problem.
Corey, can you just, so I keep it clear in my head, the name of that
Lost
project?
Springs apartment.
Okay.
Yeah, so Lost Springs would be the name of the apartment that had the approvals from us. We don't normally engage, but one quick comment on your, it will not be overnight accommodations. That is not allowed in that zone. There's only very specific places in town that are zoned for short-term rentals, so that will, by our zoning, underlying zoning code and city code, will not ever be short-term rentals. So.
And with that comment, there were a number of questions, so I think either staff or our chair from the commission would be really happy to address each of those to make sure you're getting the answer. So I know a citizens to be heard is often kind of a one-sided conversation where we hear you and we don't really have the opportunity to respond, but a lot of those I think are good answers that we can provide, or at least better clarification, if not the full answer. But
And we have your email from the comment. That might be a good way for maybe the three of us to engage, and we can get questions specifically answered for you too.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Is that Terry Morse's old house?
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to place it. Okay, any other citizens to be heard? Okay, and we did not receive any other email or electronic comments either.
correct.
Okay, our next item is approval of minutes. We have minutes from our May 2nd special meeting. Thanks again to everyone for making that meeting, for making that work. That was really nice to get those big action items out of the way at that meeting. Any motion to approve the minutes, if people have had a chance to look over them?
I'll motion to approve them.
All right, have a motion, second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor?
We
Aye.
can do.
Aye.
Isn't that nice?
So nice. It's so
Little
nice.
change.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, next, our action item for the evening, 4.1, a proposed planning resolution number 05-2022, a planning resolution approving the Western Spirit redevelopment Level 2 site plan on property located at 478 East Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah, 84532. This is a briefing and then possible action on this item this evening. And I know we have both the applicant and their team here this evening too, and if y'all have things to add, as Corey does, you're welcome to come up to the microphones too.
Perfect. In light of the applicant team being here tonight, we'll do a brief overview of what was in the agenda packet as far as the actual site plan content, and then a little bit of the applicant's narrative. And then we can open up for questions and then dive back into the plans if we need to share that further. This project is on 478 East Mill Creek Drive. The property owner is Cycling Resources, represented by Ashley Kornblatt, and then applicant Courtney Kaiser as the architect. The parcel is just over half acre, C5 neighborhood commercial zoning. The proposed use is a redevelopment of the existing use, professional offices, and what would be an additional employee dwellings component. Project size is a redevelopment of 6,023 square feet as far as the office building, including that 4-employee dorm unit. Parking includes 24 spaces. 4 of those will be ADA, 10 standard spaces, and then a 5 tandem space, equaling out to a 10 kind of standard unit parking space. The applicants included this narrative. I'll find my place really quick. The property currently functions as a headquarters for the cycling company in a small older building. In accordance with the Moab City Land Use Code, the renovation of the property will maintain its function as a commercial property, but increase the size of usable space and streamline the operations of the business. Discussions about parking and where they're allocating that. And then renovations include approximately 4,600 square feet of conditional interior space or conditioned interior space, with just about 1,300 square feet of unconditioned exterior storage and mechanical space, and 2,400 square feet of usable outdoor space. The 4 dorm rooms are included on the ground level and will be appropriately fire separated from the business functions. So separating what is, from the building's perspective, those types of uses within the structure. There'll be 2-way access to the site provided off of Oliver Circle and Mill Creek Drive. An additional 1-way entry drive is provided on Mill Creek as well. So I'm going to go ahead and share a screen. We'll see if this works on Jessica's end. I'm thinking if that's showing up on YouTube correctly. Okay. Hopefully that'll catch up with us here. I'll keep moving forward. This is the recorded county plat parcel identified here in front of that subdivision, circle court, and the R4 mobile home manufactured property just to the northwest. Showing a little bit more clear from our zoning map and vicinity map there, the identification of the site. This is that Dave's Corner Market in Milts, down off of 400 East. Is it sharing, do you think?
It is.
Okay.
I can see it on the video camera, but it's not.
Okay. For any citizens viewing at home right now, we're just operating a new technical system. So if you're not seeing the share screen in a full screen format on YouTube, all of these materials are included in the agenda packet, so you can follow along with us off of those materials. But we'll go ahead and keep moving through the presentation here. These are, well, really the full site plan package, but we'll be viewing some of the excerpts from that site plan material. This is the existing site identified, and then what we can zoom in on, which we like to include, is a little sampling of the landscaping plan and parking layout. So again, things that have been included in the packet and been reviewed with you guys before, showing some axon. This is the ground floor level of the structure, and again, I can try to blow that up for everyone, which is showing really that mechanical and storage area that would be within the basement level of the structure, and then the employee living space, kitchen lounge area for the employees, not used necessarily for commercial purposes, but for the employees of the business. Go up to now what might be considered the main floor of the dwelling, the commercial structure. This is going to be the main entryway, reception, office areas, but also that separated use of dorm rooms for employee dwelling spaces. And then the third floor, second floor above the main, would be additional conference office and commercial space. And then we do have some really nice Axon photos. Thank you, Courtney, for providing these, giving a really clear, I think, view of what the new construction is going to look like. This is looking towards the west from the east side of the property. And then still, from this perspective, looking kind of more from the Mill Creek Drive perspective on these two sides. This being the west wall of the structure. And then this being our east wall. This is mostly our south wall here. Is that right? Do I have that right? All right, and that really is going to be, I think, the general overview. I'll go ahead and break right here, open it up for questions to staff or to the applicants if the commission would like to hear from the project team.
Thank you, Corey. Yeah, I mean, if the project team, if you have anything to add, any, updates, if I know this was, a year ago, probably, we did the initial approvals, or the zone, it was a zone rezone,
right.
Yeah. You're welcome to add things. We don't have a lot on the agenda, so. All right. Cool. Is the coloring shown in the mock-ups going to be what the building looks like, the exterior, or?
Well, that part, no. We, because of the whole supply chain kerfuffle, we're going to be pretty flexible. Like, we like the colors, but
Yeah.
we might not get exactly that. But we'll definitely keep it broken up the way it is.
Yeah.
But we just don't know if we're going to be able to get those beautiful sidings that we were hoping for. But we're going for that look.
Cool.
But we might have to compromise a little bit based on what's available.
Nice. Okay, so.
I like it.
Nice renderings.
So the idea is it's a Moab-style office building with outdoor space in the back, and then we really tried to make the front kind of as soundproof as possible, because that's the challenge.
Yep.
But, and so we think it'll be useful, forever, for a while. We know the current building is really bad.
Yeah.
So we had to do something, so we're trying to do something that will be a better asset going forward.
Just a quick question. Aside from the plantings, which I noticed there are tree plantings along the road to kind of manage that sound, architecturally, is there anything else you can do to set precedent for that? Because I know that's a corridor where it would be really valuable to figure out systems for managing sound for buildings.
We will probably look and see if there's any opportunities for berming, but because of the topography of the site, and because we have a basement, I don't know that it's actually going to be all that helpful in this situation. I think the biggest thing that we'll be able to utilize to mitigate sound is landscaping first and foremost, and then secondly, we did try to just minimize the amount of space that's going to be used during the day on the south facade of the building.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not more helpful as a precedent.
No, it's great. Thanks.
Is the fence that's separating you from the properties behind, is that still going to be there, or some iteration of it? Okay. Just scrolling through this very comprehensive documents.
I think the building itself will provide soundproofing for the homes behind.
It's nice to see your lighting plan too. That's great. You don't get to see that at this early so often, so nice job. Okay, so for commissioners, if we don't have any comments or any questions, we can, of course, make a motion. This was a possible action item, and we are welcome to approve it with or without modifications. We can continue or table the item to a later meeting if we have specific direction of things that we need to make the decision, or we can deny the site plan application, giving specific findings for that denial, of course. That's what's on the table.
You guys gonna keep a lot of the bright red that's going on in that area? Because I know whenever I drive past, I just think of the bright red vehicles that are there.
Yeah.
Vehicles are staying the same.
But you're not gonna paint the whole building red?
Well, hopefully not.
We're trying to, yeah, not too much more red, but those are gonna be good, yeah.
Like a bright sign would look nice. And for the building, while this is in construction, what are you guys doing?
We're moving to the hemp farm. Now, you know, out in Spanish Valley, there's a couple of houses where, and our bookkeeper's family owns that, and we're moving there. And so, it'll be, it's a huge parking area, so we'll be able to move everything, and, the inside of it's a house, so it'll be a little adjustment, but we're pretty good at working at home already now, so it'll be, a little chaos, but not too bad. I think we'll be all right.
Awesome.
It's a beautiful view out there. Some people might not want to go back, but not be a problem.
When is construction
And
supposed to?
really quick, commission, just so you're aware, we are streaming. I know we're all live now, so we do forget a little bit how to communicate with the YouTube world, but if we're not speaking into our mics, they won't hear us, and anybody on YouTube is not going to be able to hear Ashley. So if we want to engage the applicants
Yep.
further, absolutely, but we'll have them come up, speaking to the mics as well.
I was gonna say that earlier, and then I lost it.
Sometimes, we're casual here, of course.
No,
and
it's good. No, and that's
These
nice.
are kind of,
We
yeah.
forgot how to have in-person meetings.
So to answer the earlier questions, nothing necessarily precedent-setting with landscaping as far as sound barrier berms were considered, but ultimately because the structure is planned to have a basement, that wasn't something, but they're hoping it'll actually provide some soundproofing, additional soundproofing to the neighborhood houses behind. What else did we ask about? The coloring is going to be dependent on material availability, and the applicant's business is moving out to the valley while everything's constructed. Did I miss anything? There's my summary.
And then Britain was starting to.
I was just wondering when construction, or when you were wanting to start construction.
As soon as we can. I mean, we're all the pieces are coming together, and so we hope in the next month. We've got like the challenge of lining up the contractors. We've got that coming together, and so we're just, as soon as we can, we're ready. From a business standpoint, we're ready to move, and we have that. So we're hopefully soon.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you're considering the current road construction going on next to you.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that
Britain,
is.
you would know nothing about that.
I would know nothing about this,
Yeah.
that I deal with 14 times a day. It's amazing.
Yeah, that has been entertaining. I just think the contractor is going to magically work around that. No, we have a lot. It'll be, demoing the current building will be the first order of business. So in some ways, it's like if we're making a mess, let's just make the mess all at the same time, maybe.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
Yeah. No, I hadn't really. Well, for a minute I thought that was finished, right? But no. So,
You are not alone.
yeah. So, in fact, they said they would tear the building down for us, just accidentally. That was,
How kind.
So, yeah, that's a really good point, and hopefully the things will either be really bad for a short time and then get better for everyone. But I think once we get started, I think demoing the building is going to be a problem, but once we get started, it's going to be slower and there'll be days where
Yeah,
nothing
yeah.
happens, so,
Totally.
from a traffic standpoint, anyway.
Yeah.
From a traffic standpoint, it looks like on one of those maps, one of the inlets from Mill Creek was two-way and one's one-way, or is that accurate?
That is accurate, and that's so that employees can use the backside of the building and the secondary egress, so if they have a trailer or something. But everything that's customer-facing will stay to the west side of the building on the two-way accesses.
Do you get a lot of people like turning around or like thinking you're a bike shop and
Not as, we used to, but not really lately, not in the last few years, not as much. I mean, it's a total circus right now because of the construction, but not too bad. And I think this is going to be a little more, you aren't going there unless you're meant to go there kind of thing, because it's more formal, not being dirt and all that, so.
Do you guys think that your activity will increase over the years that will like maybe inspire you to move elsewhere?
Well, we thought really hard about that, and we already operate in 17 different states, and so we don't have a lot of growth here in Moab that we see, and the design accommodates more offices so that from a year-round management side, we will be able to have a few more people, but as far as the vehicles, you know, we're probably going to get to the point where we leave the vehicles in other locations, not always coming back to Moab. So we thought about it, and we really wanted to have a neighborhood office building that could function in that way. And if we end up needing more storage or other things, that we would take care of that in another way. But for the moment, it will definitely accommodate just the growth of the management team. So.
Because do customers currently go to Western Spirit?
Not
They don't
really.
meet there.
The Moab trips have been meeting there, but they aren't meeting there now because we already started the process in preparation for the building disappearing. And but our normal model around the country is we meet at bike shops or hotels, so we're using that same model here.
Okay, yeah.
And we don't do any retail or day trips, so we're not attracting, like nobody drops in. Anybody that comes to Western Spirit already signed up for the trip.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, will your traffic pick up to a point where it is inappropriate for, it is a neighborhood, you are in a
Right.
neighborhood,
Right.
so.
Yeah, no, we don't, I mean, it's really an office building. We really tried to go with the zone that we looked at to be a neighborhood office building. Our nonprofit's gonna have take up some of the offices to start, and we really thought about that, like, should we move south of town? And we just thought, then we're just contributing to sprawl, and all our year-round office people have to drive more, and so we really thought, and that site, you know, we've been there for 20 years, and it shouldn't be a house because it's definitely busy, and it just makes sense that we feel like this is a really great, you know, just neighborhood office situation, and we don't expect we won't have more vehicles there, and we will have maybe a few more office people over the next few years, but and the guides are just there, you know, briefly, and then they move on. Like, they're all leaving here in another week. They all leave Moab to go to cooler areas. So it fits our business model to have a headquarters there and not.
You're planning on housing employees there as well.
So the housing is a bigger word than really we are doing. It's more like staying, lodging.
Yeah.
So it's temporary. It's a series of dorm rooms that'll be used for people that are going out on trips the next day, and then that kind of thing. So no, it's not going to be anyone's home per se, but it will allow them to stay inside and follow the rules and not be all over the place, and also not have to take up any other housing in the community. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice, you know, that sort of community node development in that area too. I think it definitely fits with that sort of current and future vision of what that little corridor.
A sort of off Main Street business, neighborhood business that people can get to easily.
Yeah.
But not retail, so
Yeah.
office.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
I move that the City of Moab Planning Commission approve Planning Resolution 05-2022, a planning resolution approving Level 2 site plan for the Western Spirit redevelopment on property located at 478 East Mill Creek Drive.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor of the motion of approving this planning resolution, say aye, or raise your hand, I guess, and say aye. Aye. Great.
One nay.
And one nay. Okay, we have 5 ayes and 1 nay.
Perfect. Motion passes. Thank you very
Motion
much.
passes.
Thank you, applicants.
Yeah.
Thank
thanks,
you so
guys.
much, and thank you all for serving.
Oh, yeah. And good luck.
Good luck with the supply chain.
Yeah. Oof. All right. Next on our agenda is just future agenda items.
Perfect. We have, well, if you ever want to come visit and see my whiteboard, it's starting to get pretty colorful
Oh,
up there.
boy.
I think we're in the realm of 23 applications for 2022, not including those from 2021 that haven't finished. So we're about in the realm of about 40 planning applications going through the department right now, which is just in the 3 years that I had prior been working it, that we haven't been dealing with more than I think 10 at any one given time. So there's a lot going on. That being said, about future items, I think we're preparing for the 26th Planning Commission meeting of May, which is our next meeting. Hopefully, some final plat subdivision applications. Likely will be Portal Vista. I know I've been kind of teasing with these.
No, my neighbors want
These
to know,
few.
Corey.
Portal Vista Phase 3 final plat, and then Abbey Subdivision final plat Phase 1.
Oh, wow. That's a big one.
Yeah, what is the hangup at this point with these two in particular is the drafting of a subdivision improvements agreement. And so this is a unique improvement agreement. So I'm feeling comfortable in allowing the planning commission to make the recommendation on the plat and then have that agreement drafted by the city engineer with our city attorney. And the flux of our staffing, as far as our legal staffing, city attorney, we are now partnering with Nathan Bracken as our primary legal consultant. So he's not an in-house attorney, but he's now taken that position. So we've had a lot of legal coordination, which is why that SIA has not been drafted previously, which is why we're kind of behind the ball on these, so to speak. There's also the,
Go ahead. I have a question after.
Ridgeview Cove Estates, which is also final plat approval, but has made amendments. Therefore, it has had to start over. It is going through DRT right now, and I know the applicant, I'm sure, is watching on YouTube. We are working that through DRT, and there have been new amendments in which it will be, I think, difficult for us to get it on for next agenda. We'd like to get that moving. Same thing with the SIA potential, at least for the recommendation, but we'll have to gauge the temperature of engineering, how comfortable they are, because again, at the end of the day, a lot of what we're going to be looking at is done or has already been approved. It's those agreements that get down to council level. So I'd like to keep both or all three of those moving forward. But back to a question you might have had.
What is the Ridgeview Cove?
Ridgeview Cove is a name change from what was the Mill Creek Cove subdivision, and so this is, I think, a phase 3 or 4 of that, and it's over by Kiva Drive. So right across from the high school, there's a stretch of undeveloped property right there that's pretty long and narrow. So that'll be a twin home style subdivision development. So it had preliminary plating approval. There are some there are amendments made to that. So that's why it maybe isn't flowing quite as quickly as Portal Vista, despite us not having gotten to Portal Vista or Abbey just yet. As far as site plans go, we do have a number of pretty much the full breadth of what we can do coming, but it's all about getting it sorted through DRT right now.
They're planning on only one twin home? Or?
No, it'll be, I think, a series of, I want to say, 16 lots, and the applicant's probably like, no, it's this many, but 16 lots that will then be twin homes, meaning it's Lot 1A and Lot 1B, so you're going to double the number of density with the twin home system in there. I believe that's an R2 zone there. We are also wanting to advise the commission that we're noticing a public hearing for what will be June 9th, so not our next meeting, but the following, because it's just the way the calendar worked out, we weren't able to get it noticed for this next meeting for what will be an easement relinquishment over on the Navtech property. It's an old sewer easement that's just been existing there, so we're going to coordinate with the applicant to just take that off the property, so it's fairly straightforward. I think that's all we really have scheduled, and everything else is just clawing and pending. I know Ashley was super eager to get this going. I know all the other applicants are as well, so it's just about crossing the T's and dotting the I's at this point.
With that Mill Creek development, can I make a suggestion that if anything moves forward on that we also look at that intersection, that increasing density of that development is going to make an already bad situation even worse.
Is that the Mill Creek Cove that we're talking about? So Ridgeview Cove Estates?
Yes.
There's so many Mill Creek projects, it's hard
I
to.
know,
Right,
I'm
alright.
like,
So
no,
Mill
pick a
Creek
different
Cove,
name.
now called Ridgeview
The
Cove Estates.
intersection in front of Dave's Corner Market is currently
The
one
worst one on the
stop
planet.
sign.
Right.
Yeah.
It needs to be
15
a
stop
three-way
signs.
stop.
It does.
They,
It's horrible.
and by they, the TAC, or Technical Advisory Committee for the Unified Master Transportation Plan, coordinating with the county, UDOT, and the city, just met, and I think they're refining their final draft, so it'll actually be coming to council with the number of projects. There are many, including pathways, right-of-way improvements, pedestrian improvements. So among those, I think that was one of the noted projects of priority. So as far as that intersection itself, I'm not sure how it's going to coordinate, but they're addressing all of Mill Creek. So between the intersection at Milts, the intersection at Sand Flats, intersection at Murphy Lane, and then Spanish Valley. So they're addressing the whole band of that route. So I'm not sure what the solution is at this point.
Bunch
But
of roundabouts. Citizens love roundabouts.
I hate roundabouts. I must be the only, I get it, I understand logically, I just personally.
I love them, but I also think we need a way bigger sign that says Sand Flats Rec Area, because the sign right now is this big
Yeah,
Not
that's a
our
good
road.
point.
and not our street, and everybody's Google points them
Drops
and they
into our
turn
circle.
around in
Oh,
our
interesting.
cul-de-sac
Seriously?
all day long. If you're trying to work from home,
Oh,
it's
Oh, that's
unbelievable.
interesting.
60 cars a day. How can they not see that it is literally a circle? They pull in and then they realize and they have to turn around.
Yeah. Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
goodness.
Praying for
Interesting.
ya.
Yeah, right to Google
So I
Maps.
think if there was a stop sign there, they'd be like, okay, turn at the stop sign, because I think it's Google Maps sending people, you know.
Your next right. Oh,
Yeah.
That's right,
Which
they
is
don't
awesome.
see it.
I see.
Um,
Yeah.
I like how a lot of the things we have right now or forthcoming affect all of us in our places of residence
Yeah.
directly. I think that's really hilarious, that like, I think Jeremy's sort of adjacent in Mulberry, but Ruben, where are
Well,
you?
it's also, I feel like we can
Okay, yeah.
empathize with a lot of citizens
I
in
know,
town. though, like,
absolutely,
We know, we hear your pain, we know what you're going through.
right? Cool. Corey, my question was gonna be, y'all have the most recently updated Portal Vista CCNRs about impact fees, right?
I might call on Jessica to help back me up on that. I think we have the most updated, but I don't know if it is, when was that, 2017?
2021.
I don't think that we do have that.
It would have been filed. We have,
I don't know if we do.
the PUD has a impact fees specific to phase 3, which is what that portion is called.
Right.
I know that the developer has it, but I just want to make sure
I
that,
think one of the conditions of that subdivision improvements agreement will be to comply, would be inherently to comply with any PUD regulations. And I think they have signed on some agreement to that level as a part of that project. But I'm not sure if we actually have it in-house, the new one, which is okay, because really PUDs they're self-regulating,
Yeah.
that we don't handle that.
yeah.
There you go.
I will send you the updates.
I have the letter of support, but I don't have the updated CCNR.
Okay,
And I think that was the document I was referring to,
Yep.
was that letter of support.
yep. Yep, because there was all the vacated tract things, and then just because of the private streets, there's concerns about obviously major construction damage to our sad little
Right.
private streets.
Did your parking idea gain any tracking or go anywhere? Weren't you and Becky gonna put forth some new parking?
Not yet. It's been capacity, I think, but I don't know when the right time is. We certainly have ideas that she and I talked about, and maybe just chatting about what the process would look like to at least propose some of those, like, very quick line amendments almost to code. So
I think staff would be open to coordinating that, at least to get it on the books, because what we can do at this point is, I feel Jessica and I we're gaining traction. Anna Englund, our zoning administrator, again, a lot of things I've been saying for a long time, but she will, hopefully pending a CO with her unit that she'll be moving into, be here next week, I think, next week. So that being said, what I'm referring to is, let's get things on the books now, and even if it takes a while for us to get to, we can at least start those noticing
absolutely
procedures so that we can get it before council, see if there's interest, and then go back to the drawing board to actually draft.
Totally. Unless that wanted to be something that was sort of left in the toolbox for an incentive.
Which we are working on right now. I think currently we're, keeping, we'll leave it there.
Sounds good.
Way back when, I think when I first joined the commission, we had conversations on fee and lieu and workforce housing house units requirements. Is that a conversation where we're gonna revisit, or there's interest in? I think that we ended up, for a while, the discussion was lowering it down to a unit percentage of like 500 square feet. I think we ended up on 1,000. This was in early 2020.
So we're talking about overnight accommodations,
that
assured
would be
workforce
that.
housing, the discussion of language that was an average of 1,000 square feet, which is how
Average of
it's
that,
currently written, to an average or a minimum of 500. We have not revisited that. We have gotten a number of inquiries, which isn't, unfortunately, I think, in the planning commission. On behalf of the planning commission, I've responded to these inquiries that we are affirmative in moving that draft for the RC zone forward. It's a matter of, I think, strategic visioning of amendments on the council side. So they've declared, I think in the last year, they're visioning that they're not prioritizing that amendment at this point. So we're waiting for the engagement of the commission to go back to the drawing board to finish that.
Okay.
That's something I've had
Yeah,
in the pot.
yeah.
And then, okay, my final question is, there were, last year after we were done with all of the ADU amendments, we've talked about this before, there were a couple changes that were made at the council level that were not recommendations of the planning commission, that since then I have seen play out in a way that I think has unintentionally resulted in a loss of housing for members of the community, and I would really like to advocate, particularly with the new makeup of city council since then, to maybe amend that. Does that need to come back through us, or would that?
It would have to completely come back through the full process for an amendment. The smaller the amendment, the cleaner, but it takes the full process. Given we have our representative for council, I think maybe on the record right now is an appropriate time to say, hey, there are components, mostly within the, I'm trying to think, there were a few, within the internal ADU.
There was a requirement added between planning commission approval of a draft and final approval by city council of the code changes, where the internal ADU had a owner occupancy requirement that was added to it. And since then, there have been code enforcement actions against long-standing, formerly illegal, now legal internal ADUs, which I know was a big focus of that, was bringing people into compliance and bringing internal ADUs into compliance. But because there was not an owner on the premises, even though the owner lives locally, manages things locally, and the units were occupied by full-time residents, that was not in compliance with the code anymore after that amendment. And that was the enforcement action brought.
3, that is from state level, what we promoted, it was the type 2.
Yes.
In addition to that, I think there were some amnesty components that were being worked on for getting the conversion into a safety realm, but maybe eliminating some of the regulatory as far as ownership occupation elements go. And there's, I think, 2 or potentially 3, if I'm remembering, kind of some of multiple issues that Kai's referring to that were the sticking points in the language. So I'll get back, I think, with
Yeah.
Kaya
I
to
looked back
identify
through
what
all
they
the
are.
versions of it, and this was added at some point
Right.
at the city
It's the
council
ownership,
level.
I think, for the level 2.
For level 2, yep. So that would be like a dwelling that it's like a townhome with an external
Right.
unit.
And we do have the condition that if we have a duplex and a full duplex and then an external ADU, or what would be a single household and then 2 external ADUs for lots over 20,000 square feet, that was also, I think that was the other one I was thinking about, where the ownership is required there. And that was, again, from the perspective of maintenance of property. Really, from the building and planning perspective, the gritty understanding is that when we're talking type 3, it's because we're making concessions in safety standard, that is why so there was a lot of argument about maintaining what might be occurrences of nuisance. From our perspective, that was not our concern. The ownership was purely from a maintenance standpoint, or if there is an emergency because of the reduced safety standards, that person is there. So the type 2 or the duplex with an external ownership isn't, I think, essential. I think it could be reviewed.
I mean, couldn't it be that we could qualify it where it has to be an owner or a designated manager? Like one of those 3 occupants has to be the designated manager of that property?
We do have some precedential mechanisms like that. What had been for B&Bs, there were some language components that were structured similarly, and then I think some other permitted uses that do dabble in that. The tricky element about that with ADUs is this is a residential use, and that would bring in a commercial component that now we're having to qualify management and then how that is enforced within that individual person or licensing
Well,
to
or maybe
ensure
manager
enforcement.
is not the right word. Maybe it's like responsible
Sure.
party. Whoever is
Right,
like,
Yeah.
if there's an emergency,
Yeah.
this person's making the decisions if it's not the owner that actually lives on the property.
Parcel parent.
And the parcel parent, with that, I think the closest thing that we do have, it's mostly within the development realm, which is an owner-agent agreement, meaning I am taking on the signing authority for the owner as it moves forward. So you're making decisions so whatever it could be that they sign. Again, it gets down to, I think for a type 2 or these others, type 3, I would strongly oppose this element because it is significantly decreasing the safety elements there. But a type 2 where the ownership, that could be a hybrid where I think the council, as they had made that change, would still have somebody there that is responsible because they've signed on the dotted line and given the city a contact of I'm the signed owner or agent of the owner.
I mean, particularly in the instance, the example that I had brought to my attention, it's a local, like a resident, an in-town full-time resident who just happens to own various long-term rental properties around town.
Right.
And it was like one of the old single-family homes that was like triplexed, basically, so.
And that's, what's challenging with a lot of these properties is we're looking, where this occurs is in the R2 zone, where the density is meant to be a single household or a duplex. And now we are looking at kind of triplexes. So not just a duplex with an ADU, but like full-on triplexes, which is 3 times the density or potentially a third increase, 33% increase of the density or some kind.
Hard because the R2 is like 75% of our whole town,
Yeah,
so
yeah. And
there's
so
some give somewhere.
it's a matter of, should we be looking at increasing the R2 density as far as 1 to 3 households, and then multi-household becomes 4 on, something of that nature? Or are we going to try to capture this tool with the ADU? Because the ADU, again, going back to its origins and
Totally.
why the state is fiddling, is an accessory, not a primary type use, but an accessory intended for the state's eyes, according to their state code, relative living situation, whether immediate or to some degree. You're meant to be cohabitants. And if we're doing separate apartments, that's a different housing mechanism. Not to say we can't blur the lines to benefit our housing crisis, which is where I think we're going. But from the get-go, on the record and with council representation, ensuring that we're aware of the lines and that we are going to be inclusive of those, but to make sure that we're identifying and not blurring too much.
Great.
Good discussion.
Yeah, thank you for that conversation. It was enlightening.
It's, as we, I think, again, getting traction in the planning department, we're going to be moving beyond kind of crisis mode of handling the many applications we're getting in, but getting into a proactive mode as well. So we're already setting our sights on where we want to take the redevelopment of our land use code, which hopefully is going to take us from this very defensive, retroactive posture into what is appropriate planning, which is proactive forecasting. So that's our hope. And I think we have a council that's
Good hope, yeah.
willing to make a lot of these endeavors occur.
Yeah,
So.
side note, I've been really impressed, if they're listening, or maybe Luke can, I think the new mayor and the current council have, like, done a really good job of, like, getting through things and keeping everybody on task and structured. It's been really nice to see, so kudos to you guys. It feels much more like, I mean, maybe it's also having an official representative too, who also used to be on the planning commission, but it feels like there's a lot more cross communication before the like end game of things that come between both of our bodies. So
as far as future agenda items too, before I quit, there has been discussion and wanting it to be, I think, clear to the commission, clear to the community, that we've been struggling, not just recently, but have been struggling a long time with attendance, and not just attendance, but quorum, which is kind of the more important factor. We were a 5-person body. It was changed to 7 within this recent mayor's term to allow for what was more opportunity for flexibility. But because of the increased quorum requirements, it's actually handcuffed us further, and less opportunity for the members to be on vacation or not in attendance. And so it's being discussed at the administration and council level about bring us back to a 5-member, which of course right now we are down a member, but that means that we'll also be removing and down a further member. So there's some discussion here where we have 6 sitting members now, and it means if they do make this choice, we're going to be going back to 5. So that'll have to be something I think is discussed between the mayor and the commission of where, the individual terms are of if we're going to be picking that off based the next commission member whose term is up, or if there's a voluntary basis, or however you guys want to choose and your feeling of participation. But wanted to give you a heads up, at least as far as soon as I know, let you guys know.
but that's something that's being seriously
It is being
discussed.
seriously considered, and potentially, soon.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be at this next council meeting or the following.
Yeah, having been on both a 5 and a 7-person commission, it was a lot easier to have a quorum with 5 people.
And that's, it's hard where we do currently have 6 sitting. It's nothing against any of you. Most of the absences were usually pre-dedicated, and it just was because you're struggling to get 4. So we usually did have 3 showing up.
I looked at the city website recently, and I looked into the planning commission, and I'm the only one with an expiration date in 2022.
Yep. So there's that question. But again, that'll be, I think, the mayor's position to be reaching out to Kaya and then facilitate from that direction. So from staff, I'm supportive of everyone here. Want you to know I appreciate you.
Are we still looking? Did the person that I recommended, did you ever have any contact?
Because I had heard about this, I had no, I didn't want to preemptively reach out if we were potentially going to be dropping
Right.
down to 5 people.
And this is, again, I know recently we had kind of like, hey guys, this is 2 meetings in a row. But it was far beyond that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
basically ever since we went to 7, we were struggling. I think we had a good run for like
Yeah.
a couple months. But that was nearly
Well, it's
2 years
tough,
ago.
and COVID made it really,
So-
really tough. It made it both tough and easier. Like for me, I think I didn't
With
miss
the
a meeting
Zoom.
last year because of Zoom. I would have had to if we weren't
Right.
on Zoom, but
Right,
likewise, other people had other things in their life going on too. So.
right.
Well,
Thanks.
if it makes you guys feel any better, I have some interviews with hospitals up north, so
Oh,
I
no.
might be leaving.
Oh, no.
Congratulations.
Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome for you, but boo for us.
Um,
Oh, yeah, and congratulations to our new nurse.
I'm a nurse.
So awesome. I know, I love that it was like she was like the centerfold of the paper last week. The USU graduate list and the commencement speaker too. So, well represented on the planning commission.
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, is that everything?
I think that's it. Jessica, do we have anything else? Okay.
So potentially the May 26th meeting, big meeting, June 9th, big meeting. Just keep it in your minds.
Yep. There's a lot, and unfortunately, the agendas have been coming out pretty late.
Yeah.
Usually 2 days to maybe even a day in advance. So we are meeting noticing requirements, but the reason for that is we're so close with many items that 1 or 2 days noticing wise could get them on the agenda. So we've been holding off, like with this one, I thought that we might be able to get another item on. What I'd like to do is be getting those notices to you 6 days in advance, so Friday, the week prior. That way you are aware, okay, we are having a meeting.
Really do have a meeting.
And
yeah.
here's what it is on. But I can't promise that as we're coordinating with the RT. So if we have things set well in advance,
Totally.
we will get it out to you.
My
But
one just like.
but yeah, if we're playing it by ear, addendums are a real pain, and that's why we've, when we have those opportunities to try to get people on, are reluctant to notice too early.
Totally.
But otherwise, we'll let you know well in advance if there is a cancellation, so you can plan and vacation well. But if you don't hear anything, please do assume that there is a regular meeting.
That's a good point. My one plea would be if there's anything that's even got a hint of being somewhat controversial, that we notice as far as we possibly can, just so we're not giving any appearance of trying to, I know no one ever does, and we're meeting legal requirements, but you know, there's like the legal requirements, and then there's the sort of good faith
Right.
requirements, so.
Which is helpful with our
Yeah.
public hearings, which are usually the
Yep.
ones that are controversial.
Yep.
Or that at least there is some legislative action as opposed to administrative, which most level 2, which
Yeah.
is your bigger projects, are going to be administrative anyway.
Totally.
But those public hearings, we're usually doing a whole extra week of advance noticing
Yeah.
beyond what the state requirement is. So we'll do 3 instead of 2, and sometimes potentially even 4 weeks noticing.
Awesome.
I
Okay.
have one more, hold on.
Oh, yeah.
There's a piece of land right next to the middle school. People are wondering if that can become a pickleball court, right next to the tennis courts, and there's a softball field, and there's like, an empty
It's
lot.
owned by the school.
What?
It's owned by the school.
So, do we have anything to like,
They've approached the school board many, many times. So there's some
Nice spot.
legalities.
Hey, Joe, you grab that goal.
Yeah, sorry. So, sorry, yeah, it's owned by the school, and they've approached the school board several times. Right now, the cell phone tower that is in front of the new middle school is going to be moved over to kind of behind the softball court or softball fields. That has to happen first. But there is some discussion about it, but there's a lot of legalities that have to go first. So it's, because I know the school would love to put in pickleball
the
courts.
community?
Because it would add to
Alone.
also the school.
Yeah.
Being,
Yeah.
and take it off the tennis courts.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
which, it damages the tennis courts because not everybody, is respectful. But, so yeah, there is still some talk about it, but for now it has to be on hold because there's some other things that have to happen before something can be put there. So there is talk. There's still talk about it.
Oh, and people at home, also one final thing, if you're listening, you may have seen on city social media or in the paper that there is a credit available for getting new dark sky compliant light fixtures that Moab Dark Sky is sponsoring. You can get up to $200 of new light fixtures reimbursed if they're a qualifying fixture that meet the requirements of the new program, which is really not that hard. Most new fixtures do. It's just downward shielded, basically, for outdoor light fixtures on your private house, and it's a really easy thing to apply for. My mom just did it, said she had no issues. So just making sure that everybody knows that. It's a nice thing to help you sort of come into compliance with those dark sky regulations that have been in place for, gosh, 3 years now?
That is nice, thank you.
Yeah. Cool.
Speaking of affordable housing and school board, the old Red Rock Elementary School property,
No. No
Still
more
owned by the
construction on
school.
that road.
no more construction on the road. Well, but is there any
Is that by the church?
chance of creating deed-restricted housing for teachers on the lands?
Actually, yeah, that'd be, I agree.
You have the neighborhood approval here.
I would like that. That'd be cool.
I mean, we're having a hard time attracting teachers. I mean, I know my kids are at high school, so I know the situation there, but it seems like there's a lot of turnover and there's not a lot of people applying for the open positions, and housing is a big,
I know it's hard. School
Issue.
trust land, it's hard with school properties in
Yeah,
Utah.
the school still owns that land, and
right, which
so,
is why it seems like ideal that it would be
Yeah.
deed restricted
For
for
teachers.
teachers
Yeah.
and administrators of the school district.
yeah, it's,
An idea.
it has.
Put that out there
It
in the
has
universe.
very much been discussed. So, yes, yes. And if you hear of any housing for the new principal at the high school, he needs a house.
Okay.
Exactly.
Rental is, yeah,
Yeah.
anything. So.
Hey, I
have
saw
a
one
tent.
room for rent for $2,000 yesterday, so.
Master.
No, it was not a master.
Oh, no.
It was not the master.
One bedroom, shared bath,
Wild.
$2,000.
Wild. Okay, with that, thank you everyone sincerely, and Corey and Jessica and Luke. I will adjourn this meeting of the Moab City Planning Commission